All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and peace and blessings. Welcome back to the STEM Files. We serve as your voice of STEM talent and Black culture. Tonight, we have a special guest, Sister Dr. Joy 2X. She's going to be talking to us about acupuncture, the history of acupuncture, the history of Chinese medicine, how medicine adopted from Black people originally became Chinese medicine, and so much more. Family, please stay tapped in for more after this.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy.
All right, family. Thank you all for coming back on this special edition of the STEM Files. We usually go live on STEM Files platforms at on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, we had to postpone this very special episode to Saturday, but we're here as we promised, and we are talking with Dr. Joy 2X out of Greensboro, North Carolina, about acupuncture. You know, the science of acupuncture, the history of it. We're going to be talking about healthcare, the state of healthcare in North Carolina, especially in Greensboro, and Black women in medicine. So this is going to be a very interesting episode. My name is Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I'm a biomedical research scientist with a concentration in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I'm typically joined by my right hand, my partner in righteousness, Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabril Engineer. He is a civilian mechanical engineer with the United States Navy, working on um, the very nature and materials of and the mechanics of those big fancy ships that you see out at sea on those docks. So unfortunately, he couldn't be with us. He's definitely here with us in spirit. But I'm gonna stop yapping. And family, if you're watching, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube, so that you can stay up to date on all STEM files information and content. So, like I said, I'm going to stop yapping. We're going to get right into our guest, Dr. Joy 2X. Welcome to the platform, and assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
All praise to Allah. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your patience.
Yes,
As
sir.
this was, like I said before, this was supposed to happen 2 days ago, but we're here. You know, Allah's the best of planners, and
Absolutely.
we are excited about tonight's show because first and foremost, I know very little about acupuncture. I've
Hmm.
never had experience with the treatment or anything like that. I don't know anyone that has. So this is very refreshing to me. So
Awesome.
I am, and usually when we have medical or health related episodes, I'm kind of, you know, well versed in what they're talking about in some way. But this is the first time I'm like completely clueless.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm going to be a student tonight, and I look forward to learning. But before we get into that, can you tell the audience about yourself, who you are, and how you got involved in this area of medicine?
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Well, I'm Sister Dr. Joy 2X. I'm originally from San Pedro Sula, Honduras. I was raised in Charleston, South Carolina, and I came up to Greensboro, North Carolina for my undergraduate degree at the University of Greensboro in North Carolina. So that is my humble beginning. When I graduated with a sociology degree and African American studies and gender studies, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in the process of figuring myself out, I had a lot of health issues that I actually needed to take care of. I didn't have health insurance. The school's healthcare system was kind of, nil. And luckily, Allah created this path for me. A friend of mine, who was actually in a samba band that I was playing in at the time, she gave me an application, and she said, you're already like growing your own food and making your own tinctures and things. Like, I think this would be right up your avenue. And I said, what is it? And she said that it was an herbal pharmacist position at an acupuncture clinic locally. And I said, oh my, praise be to Allah. Like, that is exactly what I want to do. I could really see myself fitting in there. So for the next 3.5 years, I worked there as the herbal pharmacist that was putting together herbal medicinal formulas for the people. And the acupuncturist that I was working for, she was a nurse practitioner. So
Oh wow.
she had turned into an acupuncturist and was kind of using them in contact with one another. There was another acupuncturist there who had an art degree, like just visual art degree, and
Yeah, they were kind
you
of
know
making a lot of pivots, huh?
exactly. And so
Okay.
that was something that was very inspiring to me, especially coming out of a sociology world. I knew I cared about our infrastructures and the hows and the whys of us as a people, but those weren't the answers per se that I was really looking for. And actually, Chinese medicine at the time really encompassed a lot of things that I was thinking about, wanting to gain more knowledge about, and really taking care of my mind, body, and spirit at the same time. So this was all encompassing. And one of the instances at this acupuncture clinic was the thing that really pivoted me into becoming an acupuncturist and a doctor of Chinese medicine. So there was a man from rural, like Mebane area, and he came in, a black man with his wife, and he had late stage Parkinson's disease. And when he came in, he was half hunched over and, slurring and drooling and, just really not in great shape. And his wife had said this was their last resort, right? They had never done anything like this. They had never heard anything like this. This was recommended through the grapevine. And, they came in. I set them up with an appointment with actually the visual arts turned acupuncturist who had actually worked with post-stroke sequelae patients and was having great success with their brain and their neurology with acupuncture and herbal medicine alone. And so I set up the appointment with him, and he spent an hour and a half, maybe closer to 2 hours with her at the time. And he walked out of that room like Lazarus from the dead. I could not believe it. My jaw
Wow.
literally dropped.
Wow.
His wife is in tears. I'm in tears. And the acupuncturist is just standing there like, yeah. I said, what did you
I do
do?
this, right?
I said, what did you? I said, I've never seen anything like this. I said, but if you can do that for my people, tell me where I have to go. I don't care the amount of money. I don't care the distance. I don't care. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And so she gave me the information, and I ended up at a Taoist school under the tutelage of an 88th generation Taoist priest for my first year. And then I transferred out to Portland, Oregon to finish my master's, and then I went on with my doctoral studies and just finished that last year. So that
Praise
is
be
how I
to
got.
Allah. Wow. Wow. So that's very interesting. And earlier on in the beginning of your story, you talked about you wanted to make sure that you were able to take care of yourself without having to deal with, the expensive tendencies of health insurance or of standard health insurance as we know it. So that's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people gravitate towards natural medicine
Yes,
or that type of medicine, alternative medicine,
right,
to begin with, is because of the cost
right.
versus traditional medicine. So um, when you made the decision, okay, this is how, first and foremost, I'm going to use this for myself first,
Mhm.
and then provide it to my people. How
Yes.
important is it to make sure that you have a firm understanding of what you're providing as it relates to yourself before you provide it to your people?
It's absolutely critical. It's the basis of helping people as a whole. I can't take care of anybody, right? Self first. We learn this
Right.
in the nation. Self first, always, and then others. You put your gas mask on, or your air supply on before anyone else, and so that was really crucial to understanding not only. And I'll say this, when I went into Chinese medical school, I literally thought I was just going to learn the basics of like martial arts, qigong and tai chi, which I did, and the herbs and the and just the needling. But it at this stage in the history of acupuncture, they have now really integrated it with Western medicine, so to speak. So that was really the learning curve for me, was all the biomedical stuff that I was learning, the pharmacology, the chemistry, all of it. So
Right.
really had to be well rooted in that, just in order to even understand that, or more or less be a translator for people, right? If somebody is coming in with something like, cardiac disease, I have to understand the mechanics of the heart
Right.
and be able to understand not only the basic biomedical mechanics of the heart, but also in the language of Chinese medicine. And in Chinese medicine, we don't necessarily speak in like a dissecting matter at all. This is holistic medicine, literally. And that means that I am looking at the patient, the person as a whole. Say, for instance, if you were to come in with cardiac disease, I would do a thorough intake, 10 general questions just about you subjectively, and figure out your essential pattern. And that is what the basis of diagnostics is in Chinese medicine. It's pattern differentiation, which is very different. It's a paradigm shift from Western medicine, which is absolutely crucial. So the more you understand patterns and can differentiate between patterns, the better you are at diagnosing, and then the better you are at treating. And so that, for me personally, was how I was taking care of self. What are my patterns? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, how are they showing up and manifesting in my body? Do I have a lot of phlegm? Do I have a lot of heat? Do I feel cold all the time? What are the mechanisms or the pathomechanisms of my diseases, and how can I help myself? And then once I figured that out, then I figured, well, I've seen how other people benefit from this very quickly. People are very receptive to this on an energetic and a physical level. So.
Got you. Okay, so we're gonna get more into the history of, acupuncture. First and foremost, we always want to be sure to actually break up or break down the terminology, right? So
Right.
before we get into the history, before we talk about anything dealing with agriculture, let's define it first, right? So what
Right.
exactly is acupuncture and how does it work?
Yes, sir. So acupuncture is actually an ancient form of healthcare that originated in China 3,000 plus years ago. It's been practiced throughout Asia and world over, and it's actually been in mainstream Western culture since the 70s. And it's actually using extremely fine needles. That's what you're seeing on your screen right now. And that we use them to manipulate the flow of qi in the body. And qi, to define that as well, is the life force or the energy force that is present in all living things. And so that is how we can understand that. Generally speaking, though, and this is something, I'm not sponsored by him, but I will say for any of the Western medical heads that really want to understand the science of acupuncture, I have to plug this book. It's one of my favorite books. It's called
Go ahead.
it's called The Spark in the Machine
Okay.
by Daniel Cohen. And I'm going to just read a little excerpt here. It says, "Qi needs a conduit, and what better pathway is there than the body in the body than the fascia? It connects and surrounds everything whilst maintaining a completely free pathway between its layers. These pathways of fascia have been detailed beautifully by anatomists, only they were not describing the fascia, but the tissues that they enclosed. To badly paraphrase," he says, apologies to Lao Tzu, "the ancient Taoist proverb, it is as though they thought the space is interesting inside the cup." And so that is how we can really understand qi in a Western sense. If you think about the layers of the body and you think about the interstitial tissue, so that is between, right, the muscle and the skin.
Right.
That is the fascial tissue. And Western medicine is literally just catching up to this. 3,000 years ago, and even still, even within our Supreme Wisdom teachings, Buddhism is 35,000 years old, right? But in this context, only 3,000 years ago, within the context of Buddhism itself, this idea of qi developed, and this idea of how to really kind of manipulate the qi developed. So there were, I can show you some tools now too, I guess.
Yes, please.
Okay, let me see what I have here. We can start with, there were 9 different needles at the time. We still use a lot of them, and some of them are non-invasive to the skin. So we have something like this, which is a Taishin.
Okay.
Mine is made out of silver, and it has a blunt end as well as a pointed end. And you can, really acupressure into the fascial tissue and create change in the qi. You can create the directionality of where the qi flows. So it could be either with the meridian or against the meridian, and those are going to have different effects on the body. And that, again, is also based on that pattern differentiation. So what do I mean by all of that? For instance, if someone comes in with an excess disease, say that you have asthma and you have basically what I would describe as phlegm heat in the body, and it's showing up as shortness of breath, maybe even some palpitations, phlegminess, coughing, things like that, I might do something along the lung meridian and use it against the way that the path actually lays on the body in order to create a stopping point for that excess of chi. So then the muscle can relax, the chi can flow easier, and the body knows how to heal itself already. So it does what it needs to do as soon as you relax it. And so from a Western medical perspective, it's been proven, scientifically proven, that, needles can release neurotransmitters, serotonin, beta endorphins, the opiate-like states of mind, euphoric states, right? Sometimes we call it like a chi nap because people get really relaxed in that. But that is so essential. That is so essential for Black people specifically in the United States, because we don't often get to rest and digest ever, if ever, right? And so when you actually go into that, state of rest and digest for yourself, your body then naturally is able to heal itself. And so that is the real beauty of acupuncture.
The body's very, very autonomous. If we kind of get out the way, the body can do what it needs to do.
Yes, sir. Another tool is the gua sha tool. This mine is made out of copper. And gua sha, a lot of these are defined on my website as well if people want to tap into that too. So, but gua sha is very similar to acupressure. It's very also similar to cupping, where you can move against or with the meridian and create what we would call sha on the skin, which is just the bringing up of the blood vessels in order to release and alleviate stagnation in the body. So that's another tool.
Okay, let's kind of backtrack a little bit, right?
Sure.
So you mentioned chakras, and you mentioned meridians and different things. Those, and like I said before,
not chakras,
this isn't not chakras. The chis. My bad. You mentioned chis, and you mentioned meridians. So can you break down each chi? Like, can you break down, like, go throughout the body and break down where which chi is responsible for which part of the body, and how you
That's
get
a good question.
how you connect how you connect the chi to the meridian?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in Chinese medicine, there are 12 different channel pathways or meridians. And they, actually, let me take a look at this. We have something also called the Chinese clock, the meridian. I don't know if you can see this really.
I can see it, yeah.
But all of these meridians are throughout the body. They're from head to toe. Again, there's 12 of them. All 12 have a yin and a yang pair. So the lung and the large intestine. Also, let me backtrack. There are 5 different elements in Chinese medicine. And even further from that is the theory of yin and yang. So from that fun symbol of yin and yang, in the middle here, from that symbol, we get eventually 5 elements. I'm really kind of trying to break this down. But within those 5 elements, you have 12 meridians. Those 12 meridians have a yin and a yang pair. So, for instance, the lung and the large intestine are the metal element. The stomach and the spleen are the earth element. The cardiac, the heart, and the small intestines are the fire element. But the fire element actually has 2 others, the pericardium and the triple burner. The water element has the kidney and the bladder, and then the wood element has the liver and the gallbladder. So there are many different pathways of chi and elementals that they're associated with that has nothing to do with chakras necessarily. I think chakras were a little later and derived from traditional Chinese medicine, but this is the basis and the foundation of Chinese medical theory, actually. So this is what we use in order to diagnose and then treat, even down to the herbs, that we administer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess my next question would be, Now that we broke down the science, now that we broke down some terminology, right? So Chinese is not. It doesn't come from Chinese medicine as it's practiced comes from us as well,
Right.
black man and woman, right? So
Absolutely.
can we go over the history of where our Chinese brothers and sisters got the way they where did they adopt this particular aspect of medicine from, and how did it become to be known as Chinese medicine?
Right. Well, if you actually, I think you have some pictures here, so if you can pull
Absolutely.
those up, we'll show those. And this, I hope people can see. So um, we can see here on the body that this was in sub-Saharan Africa, and they used tools just like these. This is cupping, right? This is on the left of my screen as well as the right, but this is a glass cup, right? But
Right.
on the picture that you just showed in Africa, they used horn, right? The earliest tools were made of horn, bone, different elemental tools that they used. And what they would do is they would actually suction, what they would suction the blood in order to create relief. Which now in modern day you can see the swimmer Phelps. He and many sports um, the sports people, they also use things like Chinese medicine, particularly cupping, because it actually releases the fascial tissue. So, um,
So
coming
what
from Africa,
uh-huh. So with cupping, right? As
mhm,
you can see, in the pictures on the screen, family, and for those who are watching, you can see the cupping marks on the swimmer Michael Phelps or what have you. So just from a physical standpoint, what exactly are those who actually get this administered upon them? What are their immediate feelings or physical? What are some of the things that they're noticing physically after the cupping procedure is done?
yes, that's a great question. So, the goal, just like the goal was here long ago, the warriors that would come in from needing to be healed from any type of trauma or wound or any kind of physical ailment, they would come into their medicine person and either receive perhaps some massage or something like cupping. And in practice, what you do, generally speaking, is you create a vacuum between the cup and the skin. So it's a suction, literally, on the
Hmm.
skin. You can use things like sometimes I use uh, oil that doesn't have any essential oil and it's just bland oil, coconut oil. And you can smooth that on the surface of the skin and then administer cupping by creating a suction, particularly in these glass cups. I would light this on fire, kind of get the inside of the cup warmed up, and then place it on the skin, and it creates a vacuum. And that vacuum is what is bringing the chi or the sha to the surface, the blood stagnation, the trauma. And you can kind of move that and manipulate that along. You would never want to go along the spine, but on the muscles, and that would really get down into the layer of the fascial tissue. And sometimes, depending on how deep the trauma is, or how old it is. I saw a brother at my school who had shrapnel from being in the military in his shoulder. So there's all different techniques. Not only is it like cupping can be stationary or to be moved, but this was also a bloodletting technique, which is another thing that we do. So we have things like lancets where he would literally prick to bleed. And so with him, my professor at the time, she pricked his shoulder a whole bunch in one specific area because he had almost zero range of motion. He couldn't get his shoulder to move. Once she did that, then she put a larger cup on top of where she had bled him, and all of that old blood was pooling out into the cup, and you could see it. It was just very, very dark. And
Wow.
she let him sit for about 15 minutes, and he literally had at least 85-90% range of motion after that. It was incredible. So there are definitely different techniques,
So
for our.
it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My
That's
mind is just kind of racing. So, in an emergency situation, right? Have you ever or not even you yourself, but have you read about or done case studies where if somebody was to accidentally lose too much blood, in that particular procedure. How do you guys respond to that?
There haven't been any that have lost any. You're not really bleeding, like letting, like,
Right.
with like a scalpel or anything like that. These are very small pinpricks, like the type you would take, your blood glucose level with. They're smaller than that.
Right.
And you're really just wanting to open up that surface
Okay.
just a little bit. You don't ever really need to do anything more. But also that lancet can be used for bringing down high blood pressure very quickly. It can also help to bring down a child's fever very quickly. So there's a lot of different uses for that. It can help alleviate asthma very quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are the apprehensions for why certain, because Western medicine, they have their own ways of going about things, their own ways of treating certain illnesses, certain diseases, right? Their own ways of reducing a fever,
Right.
or relieving somebody of some, chronic issue or what have you. So, what is the apprehension from Western medicine adopting something like this? Because I know the American Medical Association has labeled this type of medicine as non-effective, or the various things that they may have said about, or they may say about alternative medicine, especially this particular type of medicine. So, what are some of the apprehensions? Why don't they want to incorporate these things into what they do?
Well, that's an interesting question because that's actually changed over time. I think their apprehension is becoming less and less because they want to co-opt this medicine actually. And as a matter of fact, a lot of my cohort, it was a mixed bag. I'm from a sociology background. I had a medical doctor right beside me. I had a naturopath. I had physical therapists. I had chiropractors. I had the gauntlet of medicine in my classes, and then people who had no medical background whatsoever. So there was just a wide range. In terms of present day, I believe it might have been in 2016 that the Veteran Association, they were the first to actually report that this medicine works. It's wonderful to treat PTSD and any kind of traumas, physical, mental, emotional, with this population. And so they were the ones to actually help create more open avenues of insurance coverage for acupuncturists in general. So
Mm,
the tides are kind of changing, but that's kind of a catch-22 because here in North Carolina, at my first school, the head of the school, she decided to actually embark on a legal situation with physical therapists and chiropractors who were practicing something called dry needling. And dry needling is how they kind of get away with practicing acupuncture, but not calling it acupuncture, but they'll get paid more for it through the insurance companies. And then it kind of takes away from what acupuncturists actually do. This is what I'm doing has been over 12 years of schooling, and what the physical therapists and chiropractors do, and no shade because I know a few of my friends are watching that are physical therapists, but y'all know it's true, is they'll take a weekend course. They might take a 60 to 100-hour course and then call themselves a dry needler, but they're doing a lot, not all, but a majority I've seen have done a lot of damage to people. They'll over puncture and give someone a pneumothorax, and that gives acupuncturists a really bad name and then a reputation. So the tides are changing, which is good because acupuncture is becoming more well known, and the Black history of acupuncture has become more well known, which I hope we can get into that too. But yeah.
okay, got you. Well, family, we have so much more to tap into, especially since Dr. Joy is actually joining us live from her mobile clinic. And after this quick break, we're gonna get more into how she started the clinic, how she set it up, and what her goals are for the clinic. So, family, we're gonna get into the final call newspaper. Check it out.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call digital edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Peace. This is Naya Muhammad, a future architect, and you're watching The STEM Files.
All right, family, that was the Final Call newspaper. And this week's edition of the Final Call newspaper is Europe's racial reckoning. The fatal police shooting of a North African teen, sparked anger and protest in France as racism, far-right wing, and anti-migrant sentiments in European countries escalate. Family, this is the latest edition of the Final Call newspaper. All of the racial injustices and the different things that are happening to Black people are identical all over the planet. And the Final Call newspaper is the best source of information to gather all the type of content uh, in the Richmond, Virginia area. Please tap in with me. If you are in the Philadelphia area, tap in with Jabril. And of course, if you're in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, please tap in with our sister, Dr. Joy 2X. I'm sure she got the Final Call in that clinic somewhere.
Yes,
So
sir.
so definitely tap in with her. And if you'd like to read this article online, please visit finalcalldigital.com. If you'd like to follow the social media content of the Final Call newspaper, it's at Final Call Newspaper on Instagram and the Final Call newspaper on Facebook. Family, this is the Final Call newspaper. So now let's get back into the program. We are talking about the the history of acupuncture and the history of Chinese medicine. I want to backtrack a little bit before we get into the clinic. We didn't quite close up, the history of Chinese medicine and how it got from Black people into Chinese to the Chinese people adopting it as their medicine. So can we talk about the history of that exchange? Like when did it go from being known as what we do to what they do?
Well, we have to also think too that Black people were all over the world, so It's not just us and then it migrating into this space. We were there.
Right.
We are Black Asiatic people, so this has been our medicine over millennia. So
Right.
Our ancestors were there. They were the ones that were developing this. They were the ones that were talking about, especially in northern China, some of the earliest medicine came from a classical text called the Shangham Lun, and that means the medicine on cold damage. And so that was something that was the basis of their medicine. They lived in a cold climate, so we also have to think about that too. Our medicines are regional, they're that broad in scope because of the region that they're coming from. So if we're thinking about northern China over 3,000 years ago, what were the people really affected by the most? And that was, common colds, flus, kind of like lung issues, things of this nature. So they were more focusing on something like the metal element with the lung and the large intestine. Later on, you had other instances where this medicine did kind of, the theories of it migrated down into the southern regions, and so they were dealing with more hot diseases, and the hot diseases were actually things like epidemics and pandemics, and so that was called the Wenbing school. So they had all these different schools of thoughts over time that were, popping up in different populations. We also had the Li Dongyuan school, so they were talking about the gut and all the different kinds of issues that could stem from food and then treating that with food therapy. So this has been rolled over.
Got it. Okay. Gotcha. And how have and you said you're from Honduras, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with you being from Honduras, and let's kind of go into your origin a little bit too. So you're from Honduras. When did you get to the States?
1986. So I was
1986.
adopted. I was a baby. And so that's another reason why I was so concerned with my own health, because, frankly, they didn't know how to take care of me.
Wow.
And so once I was old enough to really understand myself and my own conditions, I was such a nerd when I was a child. I always was in the library reading about my own history. That was never hidden from me. I knew where I was coming from. So I did my research. I was really into Kemetic science and Egyptology, and I was really into, the Mayans and medicine, and also like beauty and beauty product. Like how did they groom themselves? How did they take care of themselves? Their cleanliness, that was something that was really of importance to me. So I think everything that I learned and was really into when I was a child kind of formally fostered and developed into this.
Yeah, because I'm curious, as to, with you, with how you were raised, right? Because
Right.
normally, the things that people decide to do as careers as in their adulthood has a lot to do with their childhood, right?
Definitely.
So for me, I didn't have anything in particular that was happening in my childhood as it relates to uh, heart disease or anything like that. I was just always fascinated with that particular area of the body, but as time went on, and I was exposed to certain things in my adolescence that kind of intensified the need or the desire to go into medicine as it relates to heart disease. So, was there anything outside of your own health that you saw growing up that was like, okay, yeah, this is, I want to be able to take care of myself without even if without having to rely on Western medicine. But
Right.
is there something else that took place in your journey to adulthood that kind of solidified this decision?
That's a good question. I was such a healthy kid, really. I was also kind of a daredevil, so like rollerblading and things like that. Never broke a bone, never did it. Surfed when I was a kid, like
Hmm.
never really injured myself or hurt myself. But I was also a really sensitive child, and so I was really intuitive, I think, early on, and so I really picked up a lot on who my people were, the relationship that I was having in all my relations, and there was just something that was amiss, and there was something that was often a little like sad and hard to watch, especially growing up in South Carolina. So just seeing, the Black diaspora there, the Gullah Geechee, just being around our people consistently, that also helped develop, something that I would like to reference as like keeping my culture alive, So that was of importance to me. And also, then when I became a young adult, right before this was right before I started working at the acupuncture clinic. I had health issues. It was the diet. It was the diet of meat and potatoes. Those were them, and that was not what I was into. I was a vegetarian, and I got the looks at different
Right,
dinners and
right.
things like that. I never celebrated Thanksgiving with them. They were appalled. You know what I mean? Like I was just so different innately, that I
Mm.
was really striving to connect in any way that I could to keep some sort of cultural reference alive. Yeah.
And how have they responded to that? Your family and those around you that you know personally, how have they responded to your growth and development? Because a lot of times, some people just don't respect our interest in what we do until they see how serious we are and see how long
Surprisingly,
they've been, yeah, and see how long how long we've been doing it, and how long we stay committed. So how's the
right.
response been?
Right. They initially they were not surprised. I was always kind of to the left of everything that they ever did. Like I was an only child, so I was kind of a wild card for them in general. And they just, I think originally they didn't really expect me to even like turn to something like medicine. They thought I would be, I was into like theater too when I was a kid, stuff like that, the arts. So they probably thought that I would have a propensity for that, but it ended up being medicine, and they were actually surprisingly at the time pretty supportive, although they were very skeptical. They supported this passion because they saw, that I was so interested in it, but at the same time, is it going to make you money? Is it going to help with these
Yeah, that's
loans?
that's
Like,
the number one thing, right?
it's the
Like how much
number
money you
one
gonna make?
thing. Yes,
Right.
and that was the biggest, thing. But I think over time, up until a couple of years ago, they were fairly supportive with the decision, because I think even their family, they were into, like, at the time, niche things like chiropractic care. In the 50s and 60s, that wasn't really a thing that everybody did, and it was kind of seen as like quack medicine. And so when I said I want to be an acupuncturist, they were like, "Yeah,
We know.
we know."
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. And I'm sure, with how you've been able to help people, and you and your clinic, and we're gonna definitely get to the clinic in a few. How you've been able to help. I'm sure you've been able to kind of bust up the the thoughts that they may have had about acupuncture and Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah. I mean, over time, and that's with anybody, that's not just um, my family, but just over time in general, even my friend group, a lot of people didn't have health insurance. A lot of people were doing similarly of like growing their own foods and trying to make their own medicines. And even some of my Western herbalist friends, they were like doing the thing, but I was like, there's some particular thing that's missing, and that is clinical experience, and also really understanding the efficacy and studying the empirical knowledge that this any kind of herbal medicine or alternative medicine might have. And Chinese medicine answered all of that. I mean, these texts are so old, and they have all, most have been translated. And then it gives you a framework, which is something that Western herbalism doesn't have. They don't have the didactic courses that allow you to say, what am I looking at right now? Am I looking at asthma? Am I looking at kidney disease? Am I looking at, heart disease? What am I looking at, and how would I treat it? They don't have those diagnostics or differentiations, unfortunately. Maybe their curriculums are changing at this point, but I don't know. But Chinese medicine had all of that. It gave me all of the answers that I wanted and needed. And so when I would bring that to friends or family or anybody, like, hey, this treats a sister today at class. She said, I saw it on the news, Sister Joy. It can treat Bell's palsy. And I said, yes, ma'am. I've worked with the nerves in the face, the trigeminal nerves. You can put needles there. You can do e-stimulation. I've seen that a lot actually in the clinics out in Oregon. Um, you can work with diabetes. You can really do a lot of good, whether it is somebody who's right in the middle of a disease or someone who wants to prevent disease, and someone who's even further along. I have a professor, now a colleague, who had stage 4 colon cancer and lived to tell about it. She's still not only living, but she's thriving. And she went to the same medical program that I went to out in Oregon. And she was in her, I think, first year of master's program, which, depending on if you do an expedited course, is 3 to 4 years. And she came down with colon cancer, and it metastasized to stage 4. And there was an awesome clinic out there that would actually titrate or IV in herbs that were used to combat toxins. And so she would go to chemo, but then she would afterwards go to this clinic that had the Chinese medicine and the IVs, and she has never had it come back at all. So that was another, yeah. And she wrote her whole case study on that, her whole dissertation. So, yeah.
Did she do any lifestyle changes outside of the treatment, or?
I'm sure she
Oh,
did.
I don't want to get into all her business, but I'm sure
Yeah,
she was able to kind of,
yeah,
you know, blend all those different things together, right?
yeah. I'm sure she did for sure. I've seen
Gotcha,
other
gotcha.
cases. Yeah, I've seen other large cases as well. Like anybody familiar with polyhydramnios or hydrops. That was actually one of my first patients out of school,
Mm,
and this is a rare, less than 1% in the entire world population has this. And to break it down, it's kind of similar to, well, the hydrops fetalis in particular. There's an immune and a non-immune, so it's similar frameworks of cancer. There might be some that are common but hard to treat, or there might be some that are less common but easier to treat. And depending on immune or non-immune, it would kind of depend on the prognosis of, chance of living. And long story short, but that child had less than a 5% chance of living, and he just celebrated his 3rd birthday in December, and he's
wow,
perfect.
praise be to Allah.
Praise be
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Allah.
Praise be to Allah. So, you know, it works.
It
Let's just say
works.
that it works. It works. And for those who are watching and whoever has apprehensions about this type of medicine, please do your research, and we're gonna actually provide your services at the end of the program. We're gonna have a link available for people to tap in.
Thank you so much.
But you're in your clinic right now. You're in your mobile
I am.
clinic. So is this a bus retrofitted into a clinic, or is
Yes.
this like RV setup? Like, what's going on here?
I'll take you around. So
All right.
Um,
Okay. First, for one of many demonstrations we've had on the show. But yes, ma'am.
so you can see it. This used to be a 14 passenger Chevy 350 bus, the church bus, and I converted it. I took out the seats, put some bamboo flooring down, painted the walls, put in a massage table, and then hired someone to help actually build out the herbal cabinets.
Okay. Got you. Got you. Can you still hear me? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Cool. So what all is needed for you to work in this type of environment? Like what types of tools do you need outside of the needles and the cups? Are there any other things that must be here for you to be successful?
Patience.
Gotcha. Patience. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. So when did this start? Like, how did you first, or how long has it been since you had the mobile setup?
The inception of this was back in my master's program, and I graduated from that in 2019. But we had like a business model class that we had to develop, and I decided to. I kept looking at the numbers of like clinics and things, and I always knew that I was going to come back to Greensboro specifically. And I kept looking at these numbers, and I was like, I don't like this is unfathomable. I don't see how this is going to work when I'm coming fresh out, taking out buku student loans. Like the bank is going to give me money to like, rent a space. Yeah, right.
Right,
And
no
so,
way.
no way. And so I've always been a prayerful woman. And so I kept praying to God and I was like, just, I know you're going to make a way. I have no startup capital. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I know that this is for my people. Like, just show me a way. And I started to look at, well, I was really into like tiny homes and stuff like that anyway. I would go on like these YouTube kicks of looking at stuff like this, and I would see
Mhm.
all these bus conversions, and I was like, that's it. I'll convert a bus. I'm totally capable of doing that. So I moved back here in 2020 due to the pandemic. My doctoral program actually ended up going online. So that gave me the flexibility to move back earlier than I had anticipated. And almost right away when I moved back in November, and by January of that year, I started fundraising. So this is all grassroots fundraised for the people, by the people. I plugged back into the old farmers market that I had always gone to, in my youth and my college days. And I literally set up a table and a chair, and I brought out these. So technically, this bus was based on the faith of a mustard seed, literally, because literally, there are these things called ear seeds. Um, so there are packs of seeds on the back of some non-adhesive sticky tape, and I have all different hues for different skin tones. And I administered acupressure to people at the market, and I would tell them, "Hey, I'm back." A lot of people still remembered me. I'm back. I have this idea to do a fundraiser to buy a bus and build it out and make a mobile clinic for us by us, because accessibility to healthcare is the main thing that matters the most, especially during the pandemic and also afterwards. And so people were down. People were super down. I ended up making a GoFundMe after I started generating some funds. And my ask for the GoFundMe was actually, I'll be transparent, it was $20,000. I didn't even make a quarter of that. And I was still,
Mm.
God made a way, Allah made a way. And he blessed me with being able to purchase with the money that I was able to raise, cash in hand, a church bus that they weren't using,
Wow,
that had
wow.
a stolen catalytic converter. And I was like, it's mine.
Right, right,
I
right.
said, that's mine. I know it's mine. And, I had tried to purchase a bus even before that, and that one got sold out from underneath me, but that was okay because Allah's the best knower, and he had this already planned, and it was in better shape. And, you
Right,
know,
right.
even with the little amount that I had, I was able to purchase it with cash and then also build it out. And it got
Mm.
up and running actually this past Juneteenth was our 1 year anniversary. That's when the bus debuted, was
Praise
a
be
year
to
ago on
Allah.
Juneteenth. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. And, there's a whole bunch of lessons in this journey of you having this clinic, right? First lesson being is that when you want to do something for the community,
Hmm.
go to the people, and the people will give you what you need to get it done.
Right.
Like you said, you set up a table in the community, and you told the people what you wanted to do, and they helped you fundraise. They gave it to you because they
Yes,
wanted
they
to
did.
see the vision, right? They wanted to see it come to
Yep.
life, and they witnessed and felt firsthand the type of work that you wanted to do. They bear
Yeah.
witness to it, and they gave you what you needed, right? It's the
Yes, they
same
did.
thing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the Honorable Minister of Farrakhan is the best example of that.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
the second thing you said was, as it relates to, it being sold up underneath you, right? And you not knowing it was sold, but a lot of times we think we're losing something,
Right.
but Allah's really trying to bless us with something better.
Absolutely. Praise be to
So
Allah.
so many lessons from this. So I just want to real quick acknowledge some of our viewers. We have Sheila X Wells, Walaikum
Ah,
Salam.
assalamualaikum.
We have Pamela Bashir, Walaikum Salam.
Yay!
We have Brother Damon, of course, out of California. Walaikum Salam, sir. And Poetic Sins, I'm not sure where you're from. There
Yay!
you go. Okay, so we got a lot of North Carolina on. Okay, you got your city on. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, cool. So family, please drop your questions in the comment section. We're at the stage right now where we can kind of answer some questions. All right, here we go. Is our sister able to treat conditions of back injuries? This is from Brother
All the
Damon out of
time.
California.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Damon. All the time. I see. Well, now it also depends on what kind of back injury. Are we talking about a slipped disc? Are we talking about, there's different assessments that I can do, different tools in my toolbox that I could say, I need to either refer you out or use my medicine in conjunct with, something else. So, yes, the short answer is yes.
Got you. Okay. So, Brother Damon, if you don't mind putting something in the comment section that kind of talks about, what type of back injuries you had in mind. You don't have to. It don't have to be anything personal, but kind of, just what your thought process was on that. And then,
I'll
of
say
course, we
too, if
have.
it's
Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
I'll say too, if it's something like larger, like scoliosis or something, that's harder to treat. Generally speaking, like I can't move bone, it won't move bone, but it will actually alleviate the fascia and the muscle tissue around, and you can kind of get sometimes, even millimeters of relief just
Movement, yeah,
by doing that.
because there's so
Yes, sir.
much pressure being relieved
Right.
off that particular area of the bone. Right.
Yes.
Okay. And we got Brother Zaire.
Ah, assalamualaikum.
Yeah, you got North Carolina on deck. I see.
That's right.
Okay,
Come on.
got you. All right, praise be to Allah. Well, family, this is got some more comments. Lower left lumbar, so that particular area of the body. I guess
Oh yes,
that's what
I
we're
got you,
referring
sir.
to. Okay, got you. Yeah, so family, keep coming with your questions. I have one particular question for you, Sister Dr. Joy. You are a member of the Ministry of Health and Human Services in
Yes, sir.
your city. For those who don't know, I serve as one of the regional coordinators, and Sister Dr. Joy is a local coordinator in her city in North Carolina, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I kind of help spearhead the DMV in the Carolinas to kind of get the Ministry of Health and Human Services not active, but moving in its activity, throughout the region. So I wanted to ask you, like, what was because I didn't meet you until after you joined. So, what
Right.
was the initial reason for why you joined the Ministry of Health and Human Services
Mhm.
for the Nation of Islam?
I think you interviewed me about the same question, sir, but it was, you know, we're talking about helping self first before you help others. This was also in line with the teachings. I am new to the nation. I just registered and just graduated this
Yes,
2023 Savior's
congratulations.
Day. Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
ma'am.
All praises due to Allah. Um, and I just really loved how the things that I am learning within the nation, just coincided so beautifully with what I was already doing for the past 12 years. Healthy self, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. Doing for self so that you can help build your community with your community for your community. So that was really the draw to the Ministry of Health. And health is wealth, but we have to really understand like what does that even mean? Some people automatically think like monetary value, but just the wealth of self, that self love, that knowledge of self, is so important, and it will get you so far in life. And that's often misconstrued, like, oh, I need to chase the bag, or I need to, like, have this woman on my arm, or do whatever, to like make it seem like I'm, that I got it, and it's like, but do you have peace of mind? Do you have peace of heart? Are you able to navigate and not get, out of sorts or out of hand when you're really trying to navigate the war on your mental, which is what we're battling every day as Black
Every
people.
day.
Right.
Absolutely, every day. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much, Sister Dr. Joy. It's evident how much you are. You know what? Let me, because I sound like I'm about to close up the show, but let me backtrack a little bit. Um, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how to live, right? Which is
Absolutely.
really the base of the Ministry of Health. It's the
Yes.
nucleus. It's everything that we um, conduct all of our activities around. So, how has How to Live, or how have you been able to incorporate How to Live into your practice?
Game changer. Total game changer. Praise be to Allah.
Yes,
Who
ma'am.
came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. He was the this Juneteenth, I was downtown servicing
Mhm.
the people, and I actually had a sister friend of mine. I said, can you bring out books from the bookstore? I said, I need How to Eat to Live, and I need Message to the Black Man. I said, I put together 2 cups worth of navy beans in packs, and then I gave people the recipe for the navy bean soup. And
Wow.
there were a few people that were coming up that know me, but some didn't, and they were like, so we see you have, these Muslim teachings and things, but like, how does all of this kind of coincide with what it is you're doing?
Hmm.
And I said, well, think about it. I said, Master Fard Muhammad is the trunk. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is that strong, rooted system, and you can see all of the fruit that have come from him. You can see Dr. Sebi, right? He was
Hmm.
a student.
Yep. Yep.
You can see all of these renowned teachers, who really put forth, these teachings, especially about how to eat to live. And I said, so how would this not coincide? I mean, and then I would bring out things like, this is what I would bring out. I made little pamphlets of like the health benefits of navy bean soup, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yes, ma'am.
um, greater gut health, improved heart health, lowers diabetes risk, better memory and cognition, weight loss support. And then I would also bring out the benefits of sea moss. I make sea moss popsicles and gel and things like that. So I was really kind of, it's holistic medicine, and it's everything from my own cultural roots from Honduras to Africa, from Nigeria, and and all encompassing, including the teachings. So that was really my joy to bring out. And also, I'd be remiss if I were not to say anything about our dear brother who just passed on July 7th, Dr. Matulu Shakur. He was also instrumental, and also not registered, but a fruit, a fruit of the nation. I mean,
Right.
so, may Allah be pleased with our brother, but he was also a very large inspiration for me, and to do this as a mobile clinic.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Got to talk about well, and that was one of the reasons why I ended the program with that particular question of How to Live, because if we don't acknowledge the teacher, it would be pointless to do anything with the student.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that. We have some more questions from the audience.
Sure.
Um, this is from Brother Damon. How does our sister view Dianetics?
Oh, well, thank you for that question. I am just kind of skating the surface of Dianetics and its teachings. I'm familiar with something called EMDR, which is rapid eye movement therapy, which is very similar. Also, in an offshoot of Chinese medicine, which we could get further into, like Japanese medicine and shiatsu, and then there's another branch called quantum shiatsu. So when we're thinking about quantum mechanics of our health and wellness, I mean, that's a whole nother, you
Whole
know,
another dimension.
a whole other dimension, which is where I
Right.
live, I love. But Dianetics, I think, is also a brilliant instrument that we absolutely need to use as a people, as a whole. I have seen nothing but good things come from it. I have yet to experience it myself, so if someone has the plug to do that, let me know.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, man. Well, auditing. Are you referring to auditing
Yes,
or?
I'm auditing. I haven't been audited yet.
Yeah. Well, there should be a auditing coordinator in your
We
mom's
do.
study group.
We
Okay.
have some, and I know that they're listening. They said no, but but they haven't finished everything yet, and so we're just kind of
Ah,
waiting. And I'm
got
really
you,
looking
got you.
forward to it, actually. So yes.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. All right. So we have another question. This is from Brother Zaire. How often does someone need acupuncture treatment if experiencing lower moderate back pain? I see that lower back pain seems to be
Man, these
current thing
FOI,
here.
FOI,
This
and
is
those hard
rough.
shoes, those hard
It's
shoes.
rough.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Thank you, Brother Zaire. Assalamu alaikum. That's a really great question. And it depends. Like, if you're talking about chronic back pain, that would be a different type of treatment principle and protocol than acute back pain. So if this was something like a acute strain or sprain, I might see you twice a week in 1 week in order to kind of get you back and going. And then you're going to do a lot more at-home care for that. If it's chronic back issues, like, maybe you also have kidney problems or again, like scoliosis, something like that, I might see you twice a week for the first week, and then treatments can be up to 10 treatments or 6 treatments, with a reevaluation at the third treatment, um, which is another reason why I don't take insurance, because that kind of cuts through how often I could see somebody. So,
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. And this is back to this lower back stuff and the lower extremities. Is our system able to treat sciatica
absolutely, yes, sir.
or
I
issues
see
with
that a lot.
sciatica? Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely, absolutely. And that should be one of the more simple things to kind of, because it's dealing with a nerve, and with the acupuncture techniques it can get right to it, right?
It can be, and I had sciatic pain before. Actually, one of my health conditions was very quickly. I had a major bicycling accident, and that is one of the ways that catapults me into the medicine as well. And it wrecked my spinal cord so hard that one of my chiropractors really had diagnosed me with cauda equina, and I couldn't move. I was literally like, if I
Wow,
laid
wow.
flat on my back, I could not move my legs to get back up. And I still have some back issues. Sometimes it flared up recently because I was in a fender bender. But acupuncture saved my life. And
Wow.
now coupled with the teachings, man, it's up.
Right, right. Living proof. Yes, ma'am.
Living proof.
Praise be to Allah. All right, so we have a question from Carrington Tribal Village.
Oh,
Can
peace,
acu
family. Assalamu alaikum.
Praise be to Allah. Can acupuncture cure lupus? We gotta
Cure,
be very careful
cure.
with that word cure.
Yes, that is a difficult disease. I can't necessarily ever say cure. Um, we can help mitigate side effects and things of this nature. But I am not opposed to believing in the human spirit as a whole. I've seen nothing short of miraculous things happen. And all praise is due to Allah. I actually get to be some sort of a conduit for that energetic, because let's be real, no medicine, no cure can come about without the permission of Allah, really. So
That's facts.
it's facts.
Absolutely. All right, family. We at that hour mark. I try not to keep our guests past an hour, hour and a half, but I just want to first and foremost say thank you for joining the STEM Files. I
Thank
know this
you.
was a Saturday evening, but we got it done. And is there are there any last words or any remarks you'd like to say about your area of medicine? How people can get in touch with you, and how people can get a hold of your services.
Yes, well, please follow me on Instagram. I'm at EarthWorks ACU. I also have a YouTube channel that you guys can check out. You can just YouTube EarthWorks Acupuncture. I go into, this was during the pandemic to help also try to keep myself sane and busy. I interviewed one of my absolute favorite Chinese professors. So we talk everything about cancer treatments with acupuncture to COVID to just the basics of how acupuncture and Chinese medicine works. We go through each different system that you were asking about, Brother Tariq. So that's informative. Check out my website. Uh, Always open for donations. So Cash App, the hashtag or the dollar sign EarthWorks ACU. because this is run for the people, by the people. No grants, no bank loans, no nothing. It's all funded by us, for us. So any donation, $5 cup of coffee, that's that's always helpful and helps to keep this Millennium Falcon afloat.
Got it. Yes, please, family. And if you would like to, take advantage of our sister services, please visit the link in the description. All of everything that sister just said is in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and of course in the caption if you're watching on Facebook Live. But family, this has been another edition of the STEM Files on YouTube and Facebook. We're going to be launching our Patreon soon, where we're going to be doing demonstrations. So people like Sister Dr. Joy, anybody that's doing something in STEM and they can show you a demonstration, they're going to be doing demonstrations on Patreon. So all that content will be exclusive to Patreon. Sister Dr. Joy didn't know it yet, but she'll definitely be doing demonstrations on Patreon. But thanks be to Allah. But yeah, we're going to keep our YouTube, our interviews exclusive to YouTube and Facebook, of course, and then our demonstrations or live demonstrations for Patreon. So family, when we launch that page, when we launch that Patreon content, please support that. Once again, this has been the STEM Files, hosted by Tariq Cardiac, at Tariq Cardiac and at Jabri_engineer. Follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, at STEM Files. And of course, like I said, support the Final Call newspaper. All right, family. This has been the STEM Files. We are the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. Assalamu alaikum.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy